Now, it seems kind of a redundant conversation because everyone these days are aware of how important it is to have antivirus on the system. But when we talk around that malware protection side of Cyber Essentials, it's not just about the AV piece. Yes, AV is absolutely important and it's there and it should be enabled, and real-time scanning should absolutely be enabled. Make sure it's updated. If you are not properly monitoring and being able to report on which of your devices are not updating their AV and that it's in scope and compliant at all times, it will be a letdown. But then starting to look at how you expand that out from just that traditional sort of file scanning side and start to look at how we can extend it into, and this could be with third-party tools, but things like Windows Defender Smart Screen, bringing that web page scanning, trying to prevent users from getting to malicious sites before they get the chance to go and browse on that link that's going to compromise your system, do also come into play. Network inspection, all the enhanced stuff that's just that little bit above that default antivirus control. But then we do go to that next stage. So using this in combination with that first piece that we mentioned around secure configuration and looking at removing unwanted software off the devices means that you do have to start to think around how you do application control that limits what can run on the devices. And this is why it's important to get rid of the stuff you don't use, because you need to then understand properly what your application set within your environment looks like. Be able to start to define up whitelisting of applications to say only these documented, approved, controlled applications can run on a device. Now, there's a lot that can go into this, especially if your environment is not already centrally managed with applications deployed with known file locations. It can take a bit of effort to start to go through to look or relook at your environment and try and pick apart where things have been installed, how they've been installed, are they just unsigned binaries and so on, which we'll go on to next because that's another question. But how we can start to implement things like App Locker or Defender application control to be able to control the running of applications. Now, in terms of the application signing side, this is going that one step further. Now, you can say that an application is approved and we've packaged it and we've said that this is our definitive, we are allowed to run this in place. But as you start to go down to that level where you say, well, actually, we're going to put a policy in place that only allows Microsoft signed, Adobe signed, Citrix signed, digitally signed, code signed applications to run on our systems. That's easier for some than others. That does mean that you can start to find some of the, certainly the older legacy. And I'll say there's even some newer applications that still come through that are not code signed. So again, you almost have to have that business policy or that decision internally that says whether you do or don't allow that. Yes, there can be edge cases, again, as long as they are documented, you know and understand the risk and you limit and mitigate the risk in a different manner, that can be done. But for the vast majority of things, you start to look at how far you can lock that piece down. There's also the aspect of, well, actually, fine, if it's something that you're bringing in for the first time and it's not yet gone through our approval process, it's not been fully vetted, it's not been added to things like our control lists with App Locker or Defender application control, how do we sandbox that application away and do that testing piece before allowing it to be released into that production environment? Now, there's some cool stuff coming through with Windows 10. So I think it was 1909 kind of, but 2004 onwards, or 2004 onwards, sorry, with Windows Sandbox. So it actually has something with the name Sandbox in it, which ticks all the boxes, but that spins up basically a mini hypervised environment, or hyper, cannot speak today for toffee, mini virtualized environment on the hypervisor level that allows you to have no interaction with your internal resources, where you can go and test some of this application and stuff, and then the environment is disposed of when you finish testing with it. So it's a non-persistent virtual environment with a secure Windows environment that you can then go and test some of these bits. There's also further extensions that I can talk around later with things like application guard and stuff.